Hi, my name is Chris Boyer, and for the purposes of PE 589, Physical Education and Exercise Science at Azusa Pacific University with Professor Cindy Tanis, this is a defense for my capstone project. The effects of two strength training methods on the athletic performance of high school water polo athletes. So the purpose of this study was to explore two strength training programs and their influence on sport-specific indices of water polo. In other words, having a group of participants in two different groups with two different strength training methods and then measuring their performance gains from a baseline assessment to a post-intervention assessment and measuring the difference or the changes that happen in comparison of those two strength training methods. And then another aspect of the study was to understand the perceptions and the effects that those strength training methods had on those athletes. So my research questions are as follow. What are the effects of explosive movements or an explosive strength training method on the sport of water polo? And what is the effect of a traditional strength training method on the sport of water polo? Third one is what is the perception of youth water polo players? What is the perception of the effects, or I wanted to know going into this study, how did they feel about them and which one do they perceive as more effective or if they help them in the sport to progress. So the reason why I'm doing this is because number one, I'm a coach and I am a former athlete in collegiate water polo, so I'm interested to know what strength training methods are most effective for development with youth players. I would like to see youth players develop more rapidly, and I want to know what's going to help my players to be able to perform at their highest. There's a lack of research in the sport of water polo in comparison to other sports, so I felt that I would like to contribute to the community of water polo and see if I can raise new questions or contribute to validate current methodologies that are being used in water polo. I looked at a number of great studies. It has been enlightening to see the research that exists in the sport of water polo, and I really enjoyed going through the different articles. I'll review three of them here today. The first article that I will review is the effects of in competitive season, power-oriented and heavy resistance lower body training on performance of elite female water polo players. This study was a 16-week study that was done on 21 elite female water polo players in Spain. As the title suggests, the purpose of this study was to discover the effects of lower body strength and resistance training on the sport-specific disciplines of water polo. So the fascinating thing about this study was that the ladies showed drastic improvement in their shot velocity. There was more than expected velocity gains for their shooting, and that wasn't expected. They didn't have the gains in the swim velocity that they expected, or they attributed the lack of gains in swim velocity to it was a lower body focused strength training protocol. So as a result of that, they didn't see the gains in swim velocity, yet they did see amazing gains in shot velocity. So the application of this is so that we understand that the lower body strength training improves water polo performance. That's the bottom line of this study. Lower body strength training improves water polo performance. The second study I'm going to look at today is Enhancing Performance in Professional Water Polo Players by Villarreal 2015. The purpose of this study was to compare three different strength methods, three different training methods on strength and sport-specific water polo performance. And the three groups that they had in this study were an in-water strength training group where they did power-focused and explosive in-water type of resistance training using medicine balls, resistance bands, and just working on explosiveness and agility. And so basically, somewhat of a control group, but with an emphasis on building just in-water strength and explosiveness. The other group was a plyometric group. The plyometric group used relatively light weight and was doing explosive movements. And the third group was a combined group. This combined group did explosive, traditional strength training, and in-water power-oriented training. So the results of this were the combined strength training approaches yielded the most significant positive change in performance. There was only one category that the combined group lost in, and that was the in-water leap. The in-water leap was improved most by the in-water group. So the in-water strength training group had the most significant gains in the in-water leap, but in all other categories, the combined group was clearly superior to the other two. A combined approach will yield the best results for a multi-targeted discipline such as water polo. For the third study that I'm going to look at here today is titled The Influence of Maximal Strength on In-Water and Dryland Performance in Young Water Polo Players. This is by Kiner, 2018, and the purpose was to explore the relationship between strength, speed strength, and indicators of water polo performance in youth water polo players. In other words, they were looking for a relationship. Is there a relationship to the length of arm, their 1-rep bench press, and their shot velocity? And taking what they found from this study was that their 1-rep maximum was more significant than the anthropomorphic factors. In other words, it's not just whether a player had a long arm or long levers, their shot velocity. The more important factor was their 1-rep maximum on their bench press for shot velocity. So in results, the authors found that the upper and lower body maximal strength measures are significant predictors of performance capacity of water polo players. This is important because we are able to use bench press, 1-rep maximum on bench press, 1-rep maximum on back squat or counter movement jump, and we're able to look at how high a player can jump relative to their height, or how much weight a player can push away from their chest or push off of the ground. And as a result of that, we could determine their capacity in water polo, or we could help rank them or look at them and say, this is a predictor of their potential capacity in the sport. Even if they're new in the sport, we can look at them and say, this is a determinant of their ability to develop skill in water polo. So the application is dryland strength assessments can be valuable assessment tools for identifying youth who have high potential for development. Dryland strength assessments can be useful in measuring the progress that may lead to an improvement in sport-specific water polo indices. So now to present the study that I completed, I did a 4-week intervention with 25 males at the high school level of water polo, ranging from very low level experience to players who had more than 6 and 7 years of water polo experience. This study was improved and implemented with the guidance of faculty advisors at Azusa Pacific University and with the approval of the administration. I also had parent consent forms signed by the 25 participants, male participants that completed this study. The method of this study was designed to examine 2 different 4-week strength training interventions and how it affected the sport-specific water polo indices of water polo. The specific tests in water assessments that I did were 2.5 gallon egg beater for time, in-water vertical jumping ability, so the in-water leap, how high can a water polo player jump out of the water, agility performance, so the T agility performance test, a 20-meter sprint for time that did not include a push off the wall, A broken 200-yard sprint. The broken 200-yard sprint was broken with 30 seconds rest at each 50. 10 crossbar leaps for time and throwing velocity measured from the 5-meter line with a radar gun. And so this study was conducted for 4 weeks. So there was 8 strength training sessions. There was a baseline strength training and in-water assessment period. And then there was a 4-week period which I did 8 weight training intervention sessions with 2 different groups. So I split the groups into a explosive strength group and a traditional strength group. And the way I did that was based off of the baseline assessment that I did. It was not based off water polo performance, but rather it was based off strictly their strength assessments. So we did a strength assessment for back squat, bench press, and deadlift. I totaled that number for their powerlifting total, and then I put all players in a ranking. So once they were ranked, I took all of the even players and put them into the traditional strength group, and I took all of the odd ranked players in that list and put them in the explosive group. For the 8 training sessions, they trained together in the same weight room, and at the end of the 4-week period, I did a in-water assessment and another post-intervention strength training assessment as well. In addition to the performance that I was looking for in order to answer my research questions about what were the effects on the performance of the water polo players, to answer my 3rd research question, I also sent out a survey to understand the perceptions of water polo players. The survey included demographic questions, Likert survey, Likert scale questions, and it included open-ended questions. So in this survey, what I was looking for is I wanted to find out, did water polo players believe that their strength training protocol improved their water polo performance, and what strength training methods do they prefer most? So for the results, it was clear that youth players preferred traditional strength training movements, such as squat and bench press. So in ranking, it was obvious that the youth players preferred doing these ones. I believe that the reason why that they preferred those is they were more comfortable with them, they were easier to do, and they've accomplished them more frequently. Youth players believe strength training improves their performance. Both groups believed that their strength training method helped them to improve. Of all of the in-water assessments in this graph right here, in this table, we have all of the in-water assessments listed right here. And then we have in-water total. And then I have my dry land assessments right here and my dry land lifting total. Here I have my explosive group and my traditional strength group with standard deviation, mean, standard deviation, and mean. And we found that egg beater power significantly increased in both the ES and the TS group. Here what we find is the 2.5 gallon difference. We have 33.2% for the ES group and 29.2% for the TS group. Both groups demonstrated significant gains in their egg beater power demonstrated in the water. The ES demonstrated superior results in the in-water leap as well at 2.85%, whereas we had a almost 6% loss with the TS group with the in-water leap. The TS group did display superior results in the T agility and crossbar. So the T agility, they had a 5.9% improvement, and with the crossbar difference, they had a 3.29% difference. Now, there was a small loss with the ES and the T agility, and there was only a small gain with the crossbar difference. So, but not a big, a 2% difference between the gain and that one. So as you can see here, there are 2 areas where ES improved and there are 2 areas where TS improved. And as we go down, we're going to see that the bench press displayed a correlation to shot velocity and swimming speed. So we see the shot velocity, the bench press difference. We have a -5, almost -4.5% for the ES group, and we have a 0.45% for the traditional strength group. And I'll discuss the reasons why I believe that that happened, where we see greater gains in the other lifting areas. So bench press displayed a correlation to shot velocity and swimming speed. What I see here is a -4.5%, and I see a loss of -3% in the shot velocity and -5.7% in the broken 200. Additionally, there's a very small, almost no gain in the bench press for the traditional strength, and you see a -2% in the shot velocity, and you see a -0.9% in the broken 200. So I determined that this displays a correlation between shot velocity and swimming speed, whereas you see a 33% increase in the 2.5 gallon egg beater. And if you come over here, you see a 14% gain in their deadlift and an 8% gain in their back squat. There's a relationship between the leg power being demonstrated, and here we find a loss in bench press, and we also find a loss in the overall swimming speed. For the 20-meter all-out sprint, they have a 0.67 gain for ES, and again, relating that to the bench press, it's very negligible gains. With the TS group, 0.05% gain. It's negligible gain, where they have a 0.45% gain in bench press. So to discuss these results and indicate why I believe what happened, this 4-week period happened at the end of a season. So this, for the first 2 weeks, we were at the end of a training block. For the last 2 weeks, the students were completing a taper. They were going into a taper, and the post-intervention assessments happened post-taper. So the taper went too long, and basically the consistency of training was reduced. So things like the broken 200 and shot velocity were reduced because during the last 7 days prior to the in-water assessments, the students went from training 5 days a week down to training to 2 days a week. And so it was a short period of time, but enough time that I would consider there was a loss in both the motivation and just the psychomotor skills, or the feeling, the cognitive pathways that are developed through daily training. When you're a competitive in-season athlete, it's going to be superior to as soon as you step outside of that window, it's going to be reduced and it's going to fall off rather quickly. What we discussed earlier with Velez et al. In 2015, that the lower body strength group demonstrated gains in their sport-specific water polo indices, and that was reflected in the in-water increases on the 2.5 gallon. Villarreal 2015 verified upper body muscular strength was associated with swim velocity. Zeres et al. Suggested that in novice throwers, both strength and ballistic power and short-term training protocols may be used to improve shot put performance. So both in swimming velocity and throwing performance, the upper body strength is going to be seen in their shot velocity and their swimming speed. And so I feel that although my players lost velocity and they lost swimming speed, or they had negligible gains, that was also demonstrated in their 1 rep maximum for bench press. Marquez et al. 2013, the current study showed that both groups attained performance gains through different means when the training load was designed to be equal. That 2 different strength training groups with different protocols, as long as the workload was the same, they came to the same relative amount of gains. And I feel that that was similar to what was seen in my study, was that although the training modalities were different for the dryland strength, the training loads were designed to be equal, and so there's relatively the same gains. And if you look back to the total in-water gains, they're so close, there's really no difference. There were 4% gains in both groups. It was 4.21 and 4.16 for total in-water improvement. it's negligible. It's so small that it's difficult to say this group is superior to that group. Talpe et al. Believe that coaches could employ strength and power training programs to elicit increases in power generating capacity of athletes. And he compared the explosive power of athletes to their explosive speed. And they believed that coaches could employ strength and power training programs to elicit increases in power generating capacity of athletes. This was a 4-week intervention done on athletes that was a foundational study that I used in order to use a 4-week strength training protocol because it's such a short amount of time. But even in that short time, Talpe found that it was clear that coaches could employ strength and power training programs even in a short time to be able to elicit performance gains. So implications, recommendations, and future research. There are strong correlations between strength training and water polo performance. It's clear to the studies, it's even clear in the study that I've done, there is a relationship. There's not necessarily a causality. This study was not designed to show the cause, but there's a relationship between strength training and water polo performance. To improve lower extremity in water power, employ squat and deadlift, and upper extremity power is related to shot and swim velocities. Employ bench press and pull-up. The training modality of explosive versus traditional is less critical than volume and intensity. So in other words, as long as the training intensity and volume is high enough, in other words, that given that the efforts are equal, that the modality is less important than the effort given. Combined strength training programs will be the most advantageous to hitting a multi-targeted sport like water polo. So combining in-water strength training with plyometric or explosive training and traditional strength training, and ensuring that you have a consistent, concurrent training program that's working on sport-specific water polo disciplines at the same time as strength training. Youth polo players prefer squat, bench, and pull-ups over deadlift, and they prefer snatch over the clean. So if they were going to choose one of the Olympic movements or one of the explosive movements, they prefer snatches over cleans, and they prefer the squat and the bench and pull-ups over deadlift. Deadlift is the least favorite out of the traditional movements, and that's important because we should program according to their interests and their background and the things they are most comfortable with in order to elicit the greatest intensity and engagement from the athletes. So future research. This study should be repeated in the future with utilization of combined motor skill assessments and control group that does not do dry land strength training. So if I was going to repeat the study or tell someone to repeat the study, first of all, I would make sure that I did this out of season instead of in season. In season, it was highly subject to competition schedule, recovery, and preparation for matches, and I feel that that affected my results. Additionally, I feel like the engagement of the athletes in out of season could be different than the engagement of athletes while in season. There's a lot of stress on athletes when they're in season, and in order to perform their best, perhaps they were not able to engage as they would if they're out of season and focus strictly on strength training and doing the assessments to the best of their ability. Additionally, I would change my assessments to combined in-water assessments, and I would use a fewer number of assessments, because using the great number of assessments, it's difficult to look at them, all of them, and to complete all of them in a timely fashion. So here's my reference sheet. And as far as acknowledgments, first of all, I want to give credit to God and say thank you, God, for the opportunity that we have to learn, to train, and to be in such a time as this, to be able, as water polo players and athletes, we get to go play in water where there are people in the world who have no fresh water to drink. So I'm very grateful and fortunate for the opportunity just to have a pool to play in, and then to be educated and to be in a institutions such as Azusa Pacific University, which I'm very thankful for, being a part of a Christian university. Additionally, I really want to thank just my parents. I want to end with saying I'm grateful for my family, for my wife and my kids. Specifically, my wife has been so supportive, so amazing through this whole process. She's my best friend. I'm very thankful for her. Thank you very much for your time, and I appreciate your attention, and I hope that my study is able to contribute to the development of your players or your program.